The opening of any story is more than just a casual introduction. It's the foundation on which the entire narrative stands. In this first part, often called the ordinary world, readers meet the protagonist before their life changes. The goal is to make the audience care about this character and understand the environment they inhabit, so that when disruption arrives, the impact is meaningful. Begin by painting a vivid picture of the character's everyday life. Show their routines, surroundings, and relationships in a way that feels authentic and immersive. This could be a bustling city apartment, a quiet rural village, or even a futuristic space station. What matters is that it feels lived in. Specific sensory details help. The smell of fresh bread in a bakery where they work, the hum of traffic outside their window, the warmth of their grandmother's garden on a late afternoon. These small touches ground the story in reality and let readers settle in. Within this normalcy, subtly reveal what makes the protagonist unique. Their habits, quirks, and personal values should shine through natural actions and dialogue. Perhaps they are meticulous about organizing their books by color, or they can't resist helping strangers. These glimpses form an emotional connection between character and reader, ensuring that when conflicts arise, the audience is invested in the outcome. Equally important is to hint at the character's inner world, their desires, fears, or unresolved wounds. Maybe they long for adventure but are tied down by duty. Perhaps they carry guilt from a past mistake or a secret they cannot share. This underlying tension provides momentum, suggesting that change is inevitable even before the inciting incident appears. A protagonist without a hidden yearning risks feeling flat. A subtle ache or ambition makes them real. Supporting characters and social context also come into play. Introduce family, friends, co-workers, or rivals who shape the hero's current life. These relationships can later become sources of help, conflict, or heartbreak. A best friend might provide comic relief, while a stern mentor could later become an unexpected ally or obstacle. Establishing these dynamics early enriches the story's texture and makes later developments more powerful. The setting itself should reflect mood and theme. A decaying neighborhood might foreshadow danger or moral decay, while a serene coastal town could contrast sharply with upcoming chaos. Through careful description, the environment becomes more than a backdrop. It mirrors the protagonist's state of mind and hints at what's to come. Finally, weave in a faint signal of approaching change, a news report, an odd encounter, or a personal decision the character keeps postponing. This doesn't need to be dramatic. A single unsettling moment or unexplained detail can plant curiosity. Readers feel that something is stirring beneath the surface. If Part 1 establishes the calm before the storm, Part 2 is where the first bolt of lightning strikes. Known as the inciting incident, this is the pivotal moment that disrupts the protagonist's ordinary world and sets the entire story in motion. Without it, there is no narrative drive. It's the spark that ignites the plot. The inciting incident should feel inevitable, yet surprising. Readers should sense, in hindsight, that the story has been building toward this disruption, even if they didn't see it coming. It can take many forms: a shocking event, a piece of news, a sudden loss, an unexpected visitor, a mysterious object, or an inner realization. For example, a quiet librarian might discover a hidden letter that reveals a family secret. A soldier might receive orders for a dangerous mission. A shy college student might be invited to an exclusive underground club. The key is that this moment upsets the status quo so thoroughly that returning to normal becomes impossible. Equally important is how the protagonist reacts. Their response, confusion, denial, excitement, or fear, reveals character depth. Perhaps they try to ignore the problem, only for circumstances to escalate. Or maybe they leap forward with reckless enthusiasm, unaware of the dangers ahead. Their reaction gives the audience insight into their personality and values, while also planting the seeds for future growth. The inciting incident should also clarify or heighten the stakes. What does the protagonist stand to gain or lose? If the stakes are too low, the story may feel aimless. Maybe the revelation threatens a beloved relationship, jeopardizes a career, or challenges their understanding of themselves. Even in a quieter, character-driven story, the emotional stakes Identity, love, belonging must be compelling enough to propel the protagonist out of comfort. This section often introduces or deepens conflict. It might reveal an antagonist, a systemic injustice, or an internal struggle that must be faced. Sometimes the antagonist is obvious, a rival, a villain, a looming disaster. Other times it's subtler, like the hero's own fear or self-doubt. Either way, tension rises, and readers sense that this problem cannot simply be wished away. While the event itself might be brief, its ripple effects should linger. Show how the characters' relationships, routines, and mental state begin to shift. Friends may question their choices, mentors may issue warnings, and even the setting can start to feel different. Streets once familiar might seem ominous, or a cozy home might suddenly feel confining. Finally, the inciting incident must create a call to action. By the end of Part 2, the protagonist is faced with a decision: embrace the change or cling to the old life. They might hesitate, bargain, or refuse at first. This tension heightens the drama, but the audience knows there is no turning back. In short, Part 2 is the story's catalyst. It transforms curiosity into urgency, forcing the protagonist to step toward an unknown future. The world has shifted, and both the hero and the reader can feel that nothing will ever be the same. After the jolt of the inciting incident, Part 3 marks the moment when the protagonist stops hovering at the edge of change and truly steps into the unknown. Often called crossing the threshold, this phase transforms curiosity and hesitation into decisive action. It's the point where something might happen becomes there's no going back. At its core, this section represents commitment. The hero has wrestled with doubt, weighed the risks, and finally makes a choice, sometimes bold, sometimes reluctant, to leave the safety of their ordinary world. This choice can be literal or symbolic. In an adventure story, it might mean boarding a ship, entering a forbidden forest, or walking through a portal. In a contemporary drama, it could be accepting a job in a new city, confessing feelings to someone they love, or exposing a hidden truth. What matters is that the character crosses a figurative line from which returning unchanged is impossible. The environment often reflects this shift. Settings may grow more vivid, strange, or charged with possibility. A bustling train station full of unknown faces, a storm-lashed mountain pass, or a tense courtroom can all signal the break from the familiar. Describing these spaces with sensory detail heightens the feeling of stepping into uncharted territory and builds anticipation for what lies ahead. This is also the perfect stage to introduce allies, mentors, or initial adversaries. New companions might provide guidance or comic relief, while early rivals can foreshadow deeper conflicts. Their interactions test the hero's resolve and add layers to the narrative. A seasoned guide might warn of dangers, a skeptical friend could challenge motives, or a mysterious stranger might offer cryptic help. These encounters remind readers that the journey is larger than the protagonist alone. Obstacles begin to appear as well. The hero's first trials, though smaller than the ultimate conflict, demonstrate the skills, courage, or quick thinking they will need later. Perhaps they face a puzzle that demands ingenuity, an argument that tests their values, or a physical challenge that exposes their limits. Early victories or setbacks signal how steep the road ahead will be. Internally, this stage often reveals a subtle but crucial transformation. The protagonist may still feel fear, but action has replaced paralysis. They start to glimpse the person they could become if they see the journey through. This inner momentum is essential. Readers should sense that growth is underway even before major revelations occur. Finally, emphasize the emotional cost of crossing this threshold. Friends or family might express concern or anger. Comfort and predictability fall away. The hero might feel both exhilaration and grief, knowing that a chapter of life has closed forever. This mix of emotions gives the story depth and underscores the seriousness of the decision. With the threshold crossed and the journey begun, the protagonist now faces the long stretch of trials that define the story's middle. Part 4, often called Rising Challenges or Tests, Allies and Enemies, is where tension steadily builds. Here, the hero learns through action, confronts escalating obstacles, and gradually transforms from the person we met in Part 1 into someone capable of facing the ultimate climax. The key feature of this section is escalation. Each challenge should feel bigger or more complex than the last, pushing the protagonist further from the comfort of their old life. These challenges can be external, treacherous landscapes, cunning adversaries, social backlash, or internal, such as doubts, fears, and conflicting loyalties. A good mix of both keeps the narrative dynamic. For example, an adventurer might navigate a deadly canyon while also wrestling with guilt about abandoning family. A modern drama might show a whistleblower struggling with legal hurdles while losing friends who fear association. This phase is also where subplots flourish. Romantic sparks, budding friendships, rivalries, and side quests add texture and emotional weight. Subplots can mirror or contrast the main arc. A growing romance might highlight themes of trust, while a rival's betrayal reinforces the dangers of ambition. These secondary threads make the world feel alive and give readers a break from the primary conflict while still deepening it. Another hallmark of Part 4 is the development of allies and enemies. Characters introduced earlier reveal their true colors. A mentor might test the hero with cryptic lessons. A seemingly friendly companion could turn traitor. A minor antagonist might rise as a formidable foe. These shifting dynamics create suspense and force the protagonist to refine their judgment of whom to trust. In many stories, this is also where the main antagonist begins to show their influence, even if they remain in the shadows. Equally important is the hero's growth through failure. Early attempts to solve problems often backfire, teaching hard lessons. Perhaps a daring plan collapses, a negotiation ends in humiliation, or a magical spell goes awry. These setbacks are not filler. They demonstrate that success will require more than courage. It will demand ingenuity, resilience, and self-awareness. Readers watch the protagonist stumble, adapt, and slowly acquire the skills and confidence they will need for the climax. The setting and atmosphere can mirror these rising stakes. Storms grow fiercer, cities become more chaotic, or a once friendly community turns hostile. Even in a quiet drama, the emotional climate tightens, deadlines loom, tempers flare, and relationships fray. This evolving backdrop signals that the world itself is pressing in, heightening the sense of urgency. By the end of Part 4, the protagonist is no longer a novice. They have faced enough trials to glimpse their own potential, yet the ultimate challenge still lies ahead. They may have gained allies, lost innocence, and discovered hidden strengths, but they also carry new wounds, physical, emotional, or moral. This combination of progress and vulnerability primes the audience for the pivotal revelation or turning point that awaits in Part 5, ensuring the story maintains both momentum and suspense. Part 5 sits at the heart of the story, often referred to as the midpoint revelation. This stage is not simply the halfway mark in terms of length. It is a dramatic pivot that redefines the narrative and forces both the protagonist and the audience to see the conflict in a new light. What seemed to be the problem before now deepens, shifts, or expands, raising the stakes to a level that makes turning back impossible. The hallmark of the midpoint is revelation. Something crucial comes to light, whether it's a shocking truth, a betrayal, a hidden connection, or a powerful new insight into the antagonist or situation. For example, in a mystery, the hero might discover that the suspect they trusted is actually complicit. In a romance, the protagonist might learn that their love interest is hiding a painful secret. In an adventure, the artifact they've been chasing might turn out to be cursed, not blessed. This shift reframes the story. What the protagonist thought they wanted, feared, or understood is suddenly challenged. Equally important is the shift in momentum. Before this point, the protagonist often reacts to events. They are pushed, pulled, and tested. At the midpoint, however, something changes within them. They become more proactive, taking ownership of their choices. This doesn't mean they stop failing, but now they are consciously pursuing the truth or their goal rather than simply surviving. Readers feel the story kick into a higher gear as the protagonist takes a stand. The midpoint often features a symbolic mirror moment, a brief but profound beat of self-reflection, where the hero confronts who they are versus who they must become. This could be literal, such as a character staring into a mirror, or metaphorical, such as realizing that their greatest obstacle is their own fear. It doesn't always resolve their inner conflict, but it crystallizes the stakes of growth, change or perish, evolve or lose everything. The external world also shifts. Stakes rise and the antagonist's presence becomes more palpable. A rival makes a decisive move. An enemy attacks with greater force, or a ticking clock is introduced. The world feels tighter, more dangerous, and less forgiving. At the same time, personal stakes intensify, relationships strain, promises are broken, or vulnerabilities are exposed. The midpoint often blends the outer and inner battles, showing how failure in one realm risks catastrophe in the other. Importantly, the midpoint is not just a twist for shock value, it reshapes the path forward. The protagonist now realizes the journey is longer, harder, and riskier than they ever imagined. Victories feel less certain, sacrifices more inevitable. The optimism of early efforts gives way to the sobering knowledge that the road ahead demands everything they have, and perhaps more. By the end of Part 5, the story has turned on its axis. The protagonist emerges with new determination, a clearer vision of the stakes, and often a dangerous new burden of truth. They are no longer the same person who stepped into the unknown. They are sharpened, scarred, and ready, though not yet fully prepared, for the darker trials that lie ahead in Part 6. Part 6 is the story's darkest hour, often called the crisis or the dark night of the soul. After the revelations and escalating stakes of the midpoint, this stage plunges the protagonist into their most difficult test yet, one that feels, for a time, like absolute failure. It is the emotional and narrative low point, the place where everything they have worked for seems lost, and the possibility of success appears almost unreachable. The crisis typically begins with a devastating blow. This can take many forms depending on the genre: a trusted ally's betrayal, the capture of a loved one, a catastrophic defeat in battle, or the public exposure of a painful secret. In a quieter drama, it might be the shattering of a relationship or the collapse of a lifelong dream. Whatever the form, the event strikes at the hero's core goal and identity, stripping away hard-won confidence and leaving them exposed. Importantly, the crisis is not merely a plot setback. It's a test of character. The protagonist must confront their deepest fear or flaw. Perhaps they have always avoided vulnerability, and now they face utter loneliness. Maybe pride or stubbornness has brought them to this ruin. By spotlighting the internal weakness that has haunted them since Part 1, the crisis forces an essential reckoning. Readers see the hero at their most human, which creates empathy and emotional investment. During this phase, relationships are tested to the breaking point. Friends may abandon the hero or challenge their decisions. Mentors might fall silent or even die, symbolically passing the torch. Romantic partners could question their bond or be torn away by circumstance. These ruptures heighten the sense of isolation and force the protagonist to decide whether they will continue alone. The external world often mirrors this despair. Settings may turn bleak, storms rage, cities burn, or quiet spaces feel eerily empty. Time may seem to slow, allowing the weight of failure to sink in. Symbolism, a withering tree, an extinguished flame, can underscore the theme of apparent hopelessness. This atmosphere reinforces the feeling that the hero stands on the edge of complete collapse, and yet within this darkness lies the seed of transformation. The crisis breaks the hero down so they can rebuild stronger. After the initial shock, a flicker of resolve begins to grow. Perhaps they recall a lesson from a mentor, uncover a hidden strength, or receive an unexpected sign of support. The hero begins to see that victory will require not only skill, but a change of heart. Accepting help, embracing vulnerability, or letting go of pride. By the end of Part 6, the protagonist emerges with a renewed sense of purpose, though the path forward is perilous. They have confronted the worst and survived even if battered and grieving. This newfound clarity and determination prepare them for the decisive confrontation of the climax. Readers feel the tension coiling. The hero is finally ready to face the antagonist or ultimate challenge. Not because they are fearless, but because they understand what truly matters and what they are willing to sacrifice to achieve it. Part 7 is the story's emotional and dramatic peak, the climax. Everything that has come before, from the first glimpse of the protagonist's ordinary world to the despair of the crisis, converges here in a single, decisive confrontation. This is where the central question of the narrative is finally answered. Will the hero succeed or fail? Will love triumph, justice prevail, or darkness win the day? The hallmark of the climax is irreversibility. Whatever happens in this section permanently alters the characters and their world. The stakes, carefully raised in earlier parts, reach their absolute highest point. If the hero wins, it cannot be by accident or luck. It must be earned through growth, sacrifice, and the lessons learned across the journey. Similarly, if the ending is tragic or bittersweet, the failure must feel inevitable and meaningful, not arbitrary. The climax almost always begins with a final confrontation, either literal or symbolic, with the antagonist or the core obstacle. In an action story, this might be a fierce battle, a daring rescue, or a high-stakes escape. In a mystery, it could be the tense unmasking of the true culprit. In a love story, it might be a raw, heartfelt confession or the last chance to stop someone from walking away. Even in quieter dramas, the climax is where the protagonist must finally act on the inner truth they have discovered. Whether that means reconciling with a parent, standing up to an oppressive system, or letting go of a long-held regret. The protagonist's character transformation is on full display. All the skills, insights, and courage earned during the rising challenges and the crisis now come together. Perhaps they finally trust an ally they once doubted, or they overcome the fear that paralyzed them earlier. Their actions at this moment should directly reflect how they have changed. If the hero began the story selfish or fearful, their climax might require selfless sacrifice or brave honesty. This payoff makes the victory or defeat feel inevitable and satisfying. Tension and pacing are crucial here. The climax should unfold with a sense of urgency and forward momentum, often compressed into a shorter time frame than earlier sections. Sentences may tighten, dialogue sharpen, and descriptions focus on critical sensory details: the ringing of a sword, the pounding of a heart, the quiver in a voice. Readers need to feel every second counts. This section may also involve sacrifice or loss, even in triumph. A hero might save the day but lose a friend, a home, or a part of themselves. Such costs add emotional depth and underscore that meaningful change always demands something in return. The final part of the story, often called resolution or denouement, serves as the emotional exhale after the intensity of the climax. While the climax delivers the decisive confrontation and answers the story's central question, the resolution shows the consequences of that outcome. It allows readers to absorb the changes, witness the characters' new realities, and feel the lasting impact of everything that has happened. The primary purpose of this section is closure. Readers have invested in the protagonist's journey, so they need to see how the world, and the people within it, have transformed. Closure does not mean every mystery is explained or every thread tied neatly. Some ambiguity can be powerful, but the major conflicts raised throughout the story should feel settled, whether by victory, loss, or a mix of both. Begin by revealing the new normal. The protagonist re-enters everyday life, but that life is no longer the same. Perhaps they return to a familiar place, home, village, workplace, yet carry new confidence, scars, or wisdom. A soldier might walk through the same town square, but with a deeper understanding of sacrifice. A lover might share a quiet breakfast with their partner, the simple act symbolizing a hard-won bond. This return with the elixir, as mythic structure calls it, proves the journey had purpose beyond mere survival. Relationships take center stage here. Allies and friends who endured the trials may reunite, offering a sense of communal healing. Former rivals might reconcile or remain estranged if that suits the theme. Romantic subplots reach their final note, whether that's a promise of shared future, a bittersweet goodbye, or a respectful parting. Each relationship should reflect the growth or loss the story explored, reinforcing that the protagonist's choices mattered to others as well as themselves. The resolution is also an opportunity for reflection and theme. Through quiet moments, dialogue, or symbolic images, the story can echo its deeper meaning. Perhaps the protagonist plants a tree to signify renewal, or a child asks a question that reveals how hope endures. These touches give readers space to consider the bigger ideas, love, freedom, justice, forgiveness, that the narrative wrestled with. If the climax required a sacrifice, this section gently shows how characters grieve and heal. Mourning a lost friend, rebuilding a devastated community, or simply sitting with the memory of what was given up adds emotional resonance. Even in upbeat endings, acknowledging cost prevents the resolution from feeling shallow. For series or open-ended tales, the resolution can drop subtle hints of future possibilities, a mysterious letter, a lingering glance, a minor unresolved thread. These are not cheap cliffhangers. They simply suggest that life continues beyond the final page. Pacing should be deliberate but not drawn out. After the heightened urgency of the climax, the rhythm slows to match the calm of aftermath, offering a satisfying release. By the end, readers should feel that the protagonist's journey has come full circle. The world is changed. The hero is changed, and something essential, whether hope, wisdom, or hard-earned peace, remains. This closing movement is the story's farewell, leaving a final image or line that lingers in the mind. Done well, it provides both emotional fulfillment and a gentle reminder that every ending is also the beginning of something new.